Ken, I know that these Lowrance units have the tide systems built in. We're on the California Delta, which is obviously a tidal system. Show me how to work this unit.
Yeah, the tides and currents, for that matter, are real important to the fish positioning, where they're, you're going to have success, things like that. And built into the mapping on the HDS Gen 3s, the Gen 2s have it also, is the tide boxes. So let's look at one of those and see what we got. On the mapping, the Insight Genesis mapping that's preloaded into the HDS units, you'll see these boxes. They're blue boxes, white in the middle. It has a C in it. Those are the current information. Right. And there's some of them have tides, a T. The T means the tidal information. So if you tap that, and go ahead and let's look at that item. So you hit the tides. This will show you what the tide is at that location on the delta. And these things are scattered. There's probably 10 or 12 of them over the delta. So if you're fishing a spot, find the closest tide box relative to your position, and you'll get to see what the tides are. It gives you the red line right here gives you the time that it currently is today. This is where you're at in the tide right now, where it's coming up on high tide. The low tide, you can tap this and find out the information. It was a plus 0.89 foot tide at 6 o'clock. The high tide we're coming up on is going to be right about 11:48 or so. It's a 2.4 tide, so your tide movement's a little less than 2 feet, and wherever your weigh-in is, you can find what your weigh-in is. It's 317. You can drag that and find wherever you need to go to get close to your last time that where you need to blast off. See how late in this incoming tide or outgoing tide can you fish. So you got the low tide. This is all incoming to the peak of the high. Then it's outgoing to the peak of the low, the bottom, then back up. So that's tidal information for your current day today on the water, and you can view it while you're fishing. Now, if you exit out of here and go back to the chart, this data, you can look at it anytime at home. Just turn your unit on and look at this data, and you can review the information. For example, at that tide box, that one item, let's look at this again. And if you touch this date, you can go into the future and look at a date in 2 weeks or something like that, and you can review the tide, because the tides are always changing. Always. And if you have a 2-day tournament, like let's say today's the 14th, and so on the 14th, if you were fishing tomorrow, you'd want to know what the tide changes. For example, let's look at this. The peak of the high is what, at about 11:54. Well, if you're fishing tomorrow, I'm sorry, I went too far. See how easy it is though to go. Hit that and then go to the 15th. So let's tap that, and the peak of the tide is going to be at 12:46. So just about an hour later, but it'll give you the height differences too. The low tide isn't as low as it was this morning. Tomorrow morning it's a little less, or vice versa. It gives you all that data, all that information, so you can plan your day, run your run of fishing spots.
So basically, Ken, this makes tide books obsolete.
It really does. That it gives you the high, the low, the peaks, the valleys, the times that they're at what level, and it gives you your mark of right now, at today, at this minute, where you are in the tide at that spot.
The fish feed a lot of times on the changes, a high tide change or a low change. So I know I'm coming up on a high change right now, and I've got a good bank right over here. It'd be a great time to run to that bank, be there at the perfect time, catch that change when those fish will be ready to eat.
Yes,
pretty easy.
Exactly.
And you can change to another tide box farther inland. It's going to vary at 1 hour, 2 hours, maybe 33 minutes, you know. But you're going to be able to chase your high tide all the way through, or chase your low tide all the way back.
So you can go over here to the east and check, up here at different tides are going to be different at different places throughout the delta, as we all know. So you can check those tides. You don't have to be right there near that box for it to show up. If you scroll out on your chart, you'll see all those tide boxes, and so if you want to run north or south or east or west, you can see relative to the tide box that's closest to you what your tide is, and what it's doing west of you, maybe 2 hours away.
It makes chasing the tides very, very simple.
Easy, real easy, and precise. No guesswork. Tide books are obsolete. All these apps and things where you have to figure out where you are on the tide and figure out where you are in between. This draws a line, shows you exactly where you are right now.
It's so easy. You hit T for tide, comes up, press it, boom, I got a chart right in front of me. Right now it's 2.3 feet in Georgiana Slough. So
there you go.
We're a little ways from Georgiana, but that's pretty awesome. I mean, unbelievable, up to date, up to the minute information. It's accurate. Pretty awesome and pretty easy.
Real easy.